Welcome to the First United Methodist Church. I am Pastor Greg. I know. No, it's a joy to have you here as we start this HCI process. I want us to start out with this quick devotional. As we look at the last words of what Jesus said to his disciples before he left them. Jesus said, "But you will receive power when the Holy Spirit comes to you, and you will be my witnesses to Jerusalem and in all Judea and Samaria and to the ends of the earth." You have this wonderful text that Jesus tells his disciples, which we are, is to be witnesses. To be witnesses amongst those that we live with. You notice he tells them Jerusalem. That's the town that they're currently in, the people that they're living with, the people that they are coexisting with. And, that's part of our mission field. This is to connect with those that are closest to us, around us, our friends, our neighbors, our people that we're connected with within this church. To connect with Judea, that area that surrounds us. Judea was the surrounding community of Jerusalem. Kind of like saying, you shall reach Red Wing in Goodhue County. And then Samaria. Samaria was the enemy. These are the people that they despised. These are the untouchables.
Packer country?
Exactly, like Wisconsin. Yeah, that's right. Very good, very good. Like Packer fans, that's right. No. But Samaria is, those that, are untouchable. And the reality is that, with nowadays, different groups are probably untouchable to different people. So what does it mean that we reach out to those that we otherwise would not reach out to? And then to the ends of the earth. And the reality is that Jesus says this as a mission not only for his disciples then, but also to a mission today. And this HCI process is really about how do we as a church body continue to grow in not only just embracing the love of God, but sharing the love of God with each other. And so as you listen, I hope that you listen with the open hearts, open doors, open minds, and that open spirit that just will allow you just to go through and be able to be able to walk relationally with those who are presenting, with those who are here, and those within our community and outside of our doors. Let us pray. Like a shepherd, you guide us, Lord. You lead us into incredible and amazing paths. And Lord, any time that you gather a group of people, Lord, that are passionate about seeking out your will, passionate about loving you, loving each other, loving the world around them, Lord, it is a beautiful thing. And so, Lord, we just ask and pray that you just allow us, Lord, to just be able to discern with your spirit of wisdom, just, Lord, on what would be best. Not for us as individuals, but for our community, for the surrounding area, for the world beyond. So, Lord, thank you for this time that we can gather, to listen, to hear, to question, to be family. Amen.
Can everybody hear me all right? I've been kind of having a cold and kind of a raspy voice, so I apologize if you're unable to hear me. But the presentation that we did last Sunday, that we did this afternoon at 1 o'clock, and that we're doing this evening is the same presentation that everybody's hearing. There's nothing different between any of those. And you'll have to pardon, I'm going to use my script here a little bit so that we continue to give the same information to all groups that listen to us. So, first of all, we want to welcome you. We appreciate the HCI team wishes to thank you for your participation. Today's information is being presented from, or I should back up, last August the Church Council approved and chose to engage in this HCI process, which has been and is continuing to be made available to Methodist churches within the Minnesota Conference. The time spent today is to share that report. There's no voting today. The voting will be done on the 18th, Sunday following service. We wish to be able to complete this presentation over the next, part of the presentation over the next 30 minutes. We ask that you remain for the whole session. We're going to ask that you keep your questions until all the presenters have made their presentations, and ask those questions at that time. From this report, a lot of you have it in front of you, there's a lot to digest. That's why we're offering these sessions, so we can take the time for prayer and discernment before the congregational vote. We will make opportunities for questions as we finish up here today. I'd like to lead this off with the following question. How many of us have had a physical examination probably over the last months or years? Most of us probably have had some kind of physical examination. Where did you go? You went to the doctor or a professional? Why was that decision made? The decision was made so you could gather enough documentation of your own health, your blood chemistry, cholesterol, sugar, and a host of other vital pieces of information. This HCI process has been conducted with the professional assistance of the consultant team in order to perform that spiritual examination of our church. I think this is the only time in this church's history that we've ever really done a full documented data gathering information in our church's history. The HCI committee gathered data from the following sources: natural church development surveys, community interviews, church staff interviews, interviews of church leaders, focus groups, observation of church services from mystery guests, as well as from the consultants as they attended our services, a self-study, and consultant feedback from both the HCI team as well as church council. What you have received in your hands is the final report of that examination of our spiritual vitality. When I read it the first time, I was taken back. Whoa, what a sense. Not our church. This has got to be a mistake. I do not feel the way that this report indicates. Why did I feel this way? Because that's exactly my point. It was a feeling, a gut feeling, my opinion. What you have in front of you is data. Remember, the HCI committee team was commissioned to gather data, not to establish policy or to create a roadmap for the future of our church. Strictly a data gathering endeavor. And as you see, it was gathered from a host of different avenues. Here's a couple more pieces of additional data. It is estimated that in a 60-year time period, the number of invitations that a Methodist member makes to someone outside our faith, who may be unchurched or nominally churched, to come and join us in our fellowship, averages one time in a 60-year period. I have to say, I can look back at my own life in 61 years, and I don't know that I've ever really made a diligent invitation to someone either that I worked with or that I knew to come and join us. I'm guilty. I haven't made that invitation. From the data gathered and within the population of our city of approximately 20,000 residents, it is estimated from the data gathered that about 14,000 residents do not regularly attend a type of worship service within our community. Majority, I'm assuming, are Christians by faith, yet do not attend or not a member of or affiliated with any kind of mainline denomination. Some of you were a part of the consultant presentation here a couple weeks ago. Until the consultants brought it to my attention, it was my belief that the demographics of Red Wing would have placed the average age of this community near and around a retirement age. Yet one of the largest age groups in our Red Wing community is that of the millennials. Those people who were born between the years of 1982, and 2002. So that's an age range of 12 years of age to 32 years of age. And from what they showed us at that weekend retreat, that we have 29% of our population of Red Wing falls into that category. Yet only a small percentage, less than 10%, again, are engaged or connected to a church. Whoa, how can this be? How can that happen? How have we lost? To me, that's pretty troubling. Wait a second. Take note. This statistic has been the trend for the majority of Methodist churches in our Minnesota conference for many years. We are not alone. Many churches like this in Methodist churches around the state are the same. Yet wait another second. Another statistic is this trend is also been taking place with all the mainline denominations here in Red Wing as well across the nation. Again, we are not alone. I've had the opportunity to visit with a couple people that I know that are attenders of churches around the park here. They've seen the same trend. I receive email newsletters from both the Minnesota Methodist Conference as well as River Valley District, which we're a part of. I'm sure Katie, Greg, Jane Stone, who is our district lay leader, others may also receive these same newsletter emails. The information that is brought forth in that is that it's over and over again said that in today's Christian religious society, we need to rethink church. Today's church is not at all like most of us may grew up in the back in the 50s, 60s, and 70s. This brings me to the big C word, change. What a difficult word. We all have experience in change in our lives. Having attended last fall's national conference in Kansas City, Reverend Hamilton demonstrated this idea of change. He brought out an old manual typewriter, and then an electric typewriter, and then the first generation computer, and then the new ever-changing sophisticated computers and tablets of today. We've also seen the evolvement of the telephone, days of the party line, to the dial phone, to the push-button phone, to the digital cell phones that we see today. I'm not too sure about any of us want to go back to those days. I doubt it. We've experienced right here in our own sanctuary a new projection system which allows for all different types of information. I think that technology allows for all the different kind of learners we have. We have visual learners. Yes, I'm the first in line feeling comfortable with tradition. I'm very comfortable with tradition. But so were the Pharisees and the high priests in the temple when Jesus upset the tables of the money changers. Change. I can easily become uncomfortable and anxious when things become different and out of sorts. I've also come to realize that tradition needs to be honored. For those who have gone before us have gifted us with a great solid foundation of tradition. Yet I realize in order to meet and greet new and vibrant Christians, there's a need to investigate, to offer and experiment with new innovative ideas and opportunities, so that new traditions may have an opportunity to be planted and seeded with God's help to become established for the betterment of our entire church culture. You have and will have a chance to read the greater detail of the general observations, which you have in front of you, the strengths to build on, concerns for attention. The consultants have provided 5 strategic recommendations. At this time, we're going to address that as an HCI team. These recommendations are presented for you to consider 3 questions. You have those up there? First one, what excites you about what you've heard? What do you wonder about or gives you pause? What do you need to do or what do you need to know to be able to wholeheartedly vote yes to the 5 recommendations that are being presented? Okay? Keep those questions in mind as we go through this. Number 1, it's in your packet. I'm not sure, it's like page 4 or something like that if I'm not mistaken. The title of it is
It's page 1.
Oh,
Simply page
I'm
1.
sorry,
Page 1.
foster
Page 1.
healing from conflict and restore trust. I'm sorry. The consultant team experienced evidence of a lack of trust and conflict from the data gathered through the natural church development surveys, as well as from individual and group meetings. Conflict is a disagreement that is expressed in an unhealthy manner. Conflict, to me, is often a perception which can be unknown and often misunderstood. From my professional career, I dealt with disagreement a lot in the school setting. And I would like to really think about conflict in the 3 words of disagreement, misinformation, and misunderstandings. I choose to use those words. rather than conflict, because so often the issue was simply a misunderstanding or a lack of knowledge. Yet by the time the conflict ended on my desk at the high school, misunderstanding had elevated and had become a personal attack to those two students. The students involved found words or actions that when used cause emotional hurt and distress to each other. It became imperative for me in that situation to get the parties together and to see all sides of that issue. I used a tool in my desk, simple ping pong ball, one side red, one side white, and I had the students facing each other and I said, what do you see? One would say, well, I see red. And the other student, what do you see? I see white. They didn't see it differently, and that's what my intention was purposely, to draw them to know that there is some differences of what they actually perceive or hear and what they saw. It was often a lack of information and the inability to show tolerance of their differences. It was necessary to have the parties dialogue so that disagreement could begin to show some resolution by simply getting a handle on the entire background of the disagreement. Communication. I'm sure we've all experienced a telephone game and how the message can easily change from the initial message to that of entirely different message at the end of the telephone game. I'm guilty. I've played that game. I've been a part of that. It's happened in my lifetime in all sorts of situations. Today's world of texting, emails, tweets, and all other social media messaging can often lead to the message and information being misunderstood, where there is no more face-to-face dialogue, no voice heard, no facial expressions seen, and a lack of trust, misinterpretation, and misunderstanding can easily be seeded. What can happen next is what I call the Minnesota Nice. This behavior only allows for misinformation, mistrust, and miscommunication to continue. We often tiptoe and walk on eggshells around the issues. Again, I've done that in my lifetime. I'm guilty of doing that exactly. I'm a soother. I've always been a soother. Healthy communication allows trust to be rebuilt and allows disagreement to be expressed in a healthy and respectful manner so that all involved can be active participants in the mission and vision of our church. The consultant team has prescribed the following strategic recommendations to foster healing from conflict and restore trust. I'm personally supporting their recommendations and willing to do the work needed to foster that healing and restore the trust. Action step 1. Formal committees and teams will take a 6-month sabbatical to allow time and space to focus on a spiritual renewal and conflict resolution work. 2, all current and future leaders of the committee members will attend spiritual and conflict resolution training, whether it's retraining around the rule of Christ or another similar process. During the planned sabbatical and training period, a sermon series around conflict resolution will be delivered to the congregation and a variety of other leaders. It will be the hope of small groups can be formed around a biblical study to continue the spiritual grounding and encourage individual and collective reflection as part of the healing journey. All leaders and committee members will sign a covenant or a rule of Christ of similar nature as a commitment and requirement to be in leadership. The whole congregation will also be invited to sign a covenant to demonstrate their faithfulness and commitment to being a loving and spiritually grounded church. By restoring healing from conflict and ability to restore trust, we can then move forward towards successful implementation of the remaining 4 strategic recommendations that the consultants have proposed. We're going to look at the remaining 4. I'm going to turn this next one over to Judy to talk about the second one that you have there in your sheet.
So as you can see, we need to talk about our vision, because if you don't have a clear vision, you can sure make a mess of things. Not leaving enough space for your wording. That can come from 2 reasons. One is you're so passionate that you get so excited to get ahead of yourself and you don't have a clear-cut plan that you want to follow. The other is that you don't have an intentional vision of what you want to do next and why. Our congregation has struggled with understanding our church's vision. I know that when I went to the training sessions this fall, we had 3 day-long sessions in August, September, and October, right? Yeah. That we talked about, one of the first questions was, they asked us, what is your church's mission statement? What is the church's vision? I couldn't answer that question. I had no idea. You know, it's, well, yeah, open hearts, open doors. Yeah, is that actionable? Not really. We want to be able to state what that laser sharp direction is that we want to move forward as a group. These action steps will help us, hopefully, with the help of our coach, Kathy Townley, to reach these, to obtain a vision statement that we can actually act on and everyone would be able to live up to. So we're going to develop a shared vision, easily understood and compelling. We want to provide the training and the self-reflection in those areas of the sabbatical so that we can actually know what's on our hearts and what our mission field is and where we want to go in our vision. So we want to develop a vision that's compelling so that we can act to our community outside our doors, so there's 14,000 people that need to be discipled. The ones that need compassion from us, that want to be helpful. We are a congregation that's known for helping others. We're a community that's known for helping others. There's 500 plus nonprofit organizations in this town. That's crazy. With that much people working and wanting to work together, how do we not serve the least, the lost, and the lonely? How are we missing the mark? We definitely, as a church and as a community, want to get into that. We want to do this discovery and discernment process by exploring that mission field. And then we want to definitely capture our spiritual work and through our small groups, make those connections with each other so that I know that I can trust who is working with me on my team, that we can go forward and do the mission and do the work that Jesus has laid out for us to make disciples of Jesus Christ. So that is our vision statement that we'll be looking towards. Our next slide is, we're going to talk about how to develop a Sunday experience that engages guests and regulars. A wow, worth your while experience. That is one of the things that we want to create, that loving environment, not only for each of us, that we feel warm and welcome and that somebody misses us when we don't show up, but we want to engage others as they come in our doors. We certainly want to have an atmosphere that's missional outside our doors and inside. There is some great reading. We'll be addressing missional worship, and it talks about how to create those opportunities. One of the points that our guest visitors and the consultants found out that is, you went to the gas station down the street and asked which one the Methodist church was, nobody knew. They couldn't give you directions. Well, it's one of those around the park. How are we going to make our signage be welcoming and clear cut? How can someone who's not ever stepped foot in the church know where to walk in, what to do? What do the P's and the L's mean in the bulletin? Why is this bold and that not bold? Do I read this? Do I not read that? How would you know if you've never been to church? Signage is huge. We have a sign that says nursery. Does it say hours? I mean, do we run an all-day, everyday daycare? Or do we just have a nursery that's during church service? And nobody knows because there's no signs. And then along with that is that we want to be more outgoing and invite and have those situations. So have our greeters not only just stand there and welcome you when you come in, but to actually maybe help you or walk you to where the sanctuary is or walk you to where the bathroom is if that's what you need help finding in the building. So the signage and all those, kind of surroundings is what we're going to be looking at when we do our action steps. That'll include our exterior signage as well as our interior. It's going to change some flow with seating and how we do friend fellowship after church in this room, and some hospitality pieces that we want to implement. So being that church that we want to be invitational and we want to engage others leads to the section that David's going to speak to.
Okay, once again, the concerns are pretty self-evident, we talked a little bit about it, and Don mentioned it. Our inability to really reach out and invite others in a very welcoming way. I've never invited someone to church, and Don mentioned that. And we have to ask ourselves, why is that? You know, why is that? Some of us have a hard time articulating our faith, and
We have to be time you
Okay.
there seems to be a reluctance to invite people to church when there's conflict that's not been addressed and resolved, okay? I'm gonna go a little off script, and we talked about welcoming, and there's a difference between greeting and welcoming and creating an atmosphere of invitation. And I'll just share a story from the first time I came here 2 years ago, okay? I came with my 2 little kids. I think maybe somebody said hello to me at the door, and we went through the worship, and nobody really spoke to us. I'm not pointing fingers at anybody, I'm just sharing my experience. And my kids needed to use the restroom, and we were wandering around trying to find a place, and there was Sunday school going on, and thank God I ran into Katie Beischer. And I had a 30-minute conversation with her. And I just opened up and shared with her where I was in my life, and she shared where she was in her life on her faith journey. Had that conversation not have happened, I wouldn't come back, okay? And it was that invitation that made me feel welcome, made me feel at home, and made me feel understood. And I think that's something that is imperative if we're trying to grow our church membership base. You know, and there's a difference between greeting somebody and creating a culture of invitation, where you really feel welcome, you feel loved, and you feel at home. And if we don't have that, people are not gonna wanna come back. Now, this is not easy to do. It takes training to learn how to do this. It doesn't really come to us naturally. And it takes a lot of risk. It was a risk on her part, it was a risk on my part. And I think it's one of those things that we have to learn how to do. And if we vote yes on this, the consultant, Kathy Townsend, is gonna teach us how to do this, okay? This takes me out of my comfort zone. It does, it really, really does. And I think if we really wanna grow as a church, we're gonna have to step outside of our comfort zones, all right? And this is, you know, I'll say, this is where a yes vote scares me. It does, because it's gonna take me out of my comfort zone. It's gonna cause me to step up my game, okay? I can't just go about business as usual and say hi, and then leave, all right? This is a different type of ministry. This is taking the time to get to know people, to interact with them, let them to get to know me, so that we can create a healthy family. So that when people walk in the doors, they say, wow, they really care about each other. These people really have each other's back, okay? But that can't happen until we start to heal. Okay? And a lot of this is going to be during the sabbatical time, is the development of small groups. I'm not sure exactly how they have that designed, but with the intention of us getting to know each other on a more intimate level. Okay? And the other part of that is developing a prayer team to help us with that process. But overall, we struggle over here. Okay? And none of this really comes naturally. It doesn't come naturally to me, and I don't think it comes naturally to most people. So the one exciting thing about the possibilities here is that if we vote yes, we have a coach who comes in and helps us with this. The coach is not going to tell us what our direction is going to be, what our vision is going to be, what our worship is going to look like. They will offer suggestions. And hopefully we will have healed somewhat as a church body. We've gotten to know each other. We've learned to trust each other more so that we can come together and create a common vision. They're not going to create it for us. We get to create that vision. Okay?
And so now we'll move into the 5th recommendation, which is establishing systems and structures for effective ministry. So one of the things, I know Don said that we're going to be presenting the same information every time, but one thing that I learned from the first one is that there were some things that we need to highlight better. And so my information hopefully will be a little more expansive than it was the first time. It's not different, it's just communicating answers to questions people had following the session. One of the things was the targeted areas, making sure that we talk about, there are 5 areas. So healing from conflict and restoring trust, developing a clear and compelling vision, creating a worship experience, a worthwhile worship experience, Sunday experience that engages both guests and regulars, creating a culture of invitation, and simplifying structures and systems for effective ministry. There are a lot of things that go really well here. As Judy mentioned, we are a passionate congregation. We want to serve, and we have lots of mission teams that are out doing a lot of good work. Our vision is not clear, and what's meant by that is, one of our vision statements has been to see God in everyone. And anytime I talk to someone about that, it means something very different to every person. And while that's wonderful, it isn't helpful when we are trying to have an identity, a place where people know First United Methodist Church is about this. Having a common vision, a clear and compelling vision, helps us to have an identity, but it also helps us understand why we do the things we do. If we have a clear and compelling vision, we are going to know why we do the pie and ice cream social. An example, Don brought up the Leadership Institute that we went to in Kansas City last year. And one of the things that I was most struck by was every member there knew what their mission was as a church. Their mission was to reach the nominally churched and the unchurched, to make them disciples of Jesus Christ. And they made hard decisions because of that. They had a phenomenal choir and orchestra. I mean, it was hundreds of people singing, a 25-person bell choir, bagpipes, and an orchestra. And they used that at one of the services. It was wonderful. It's like, wow, I'd come here for that. Absolutely. They don't have that performance group at their Sunday worship because that performance group was appealing to people like me, people who like to go to church. It was not something that was bringing the unchurched or the nominally churched in. They took a year to study that and decided that that group would only perform at special services, holiday services, for conferences that they host, but not on regular Sundays, because that took people from other churches instead of bringing in new people. And when I talked with one of the ushers who was a member there about that decision, it brought her to tears about how much she missed having that part of her regular worship experience, but also how that process was very valuable because they were very clear. We're doing this because our mission, our vision, is to reach the nominally churched and the unchurched. And sometimes things like that you love have to go. So that's when we're talking about our structures and governance, those are some of the hard decisions. The sabbatical has been mentioned I think when Don gave his presentation. The sabbatical is a 6-month time where we're going to do a lot of self-study. The committees are not going to meet on a monthly basis. There will be a simplified governance structure. So the church council chair, Don, the trustees chair, Dan, the SPRC chair, Mandy, the lay leader, which is me, Greg, and Paul, the finance chair, are still going to meet to make sure that business continues to run. Bills still get paid, people are paying attention to those things. What that